Hello, everyone, and thanks for hanging out with us for the Behind the Numbers weekly listen, an e-marketer podcast made possible by M-Particle. This is the Friday show that reviews the most turn-on-my-hazard lights in the middle of traffic, media and retail news stories of the week. I'm your host, Marcus Johnson, in today's show. Elon reveals his plans for Twitter.
Again, great plans, and if he pulls them off, then that would be amazing, but I just don't see anything. I mean, they're calling this a pitch deck. I'd love to see the actual pitch deck because it seems to me more like it would be a campaign promise if it were a politician.
The future of connected fitness.
The way to get people to shell over X amount of dollars each month is giving them more bang for their buck. And if you're bundling, digital fitness with apparel, you have a lot better of a chance of getting someone to fork over the $39.99 a month.
The speed of online checkout.
I found it both hilarious and interesting because it speaks to a shift in consumer sentiment away from just being, wary of sharing information to just straight up being outright dismissive of it.
The power of video podcasts, an unpopular opinion about 15-minute grocery delivery, and where did the Nobel Prize come from? Join me for today's episode. We have three people. Let's meet them. We start with the analyst. How'd I do?
I'm the only one.
Nailed it. Evelyn Mitchell, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Marcus.
There she is. We're also joined by our principal analyst who heads up our advertising and media practice. It's Paul Werner.
Great to be here.
Hello, sir. And finally, we have Blake Drosh, who's one of our senior analysts on the retail and e-commerce team.
Hey, everybody.
Hello, hello. What do we have in store for you today, folks? 4 segments as usual. We start with the story of the week. We're talking about Elon's plans for Twitter, now that he's given us a bit more insight into those. We then move to the game of the week, where our contestants, Evelyn, Blake, and Paul, will go head-to-head to try and win the championship belt. We then move to Uncommon Knowledge. We'll talk about some unpopular opinions. And finally, Dinner Party Data. We'll share some random trivia we've just been reading about, learning about. We start with the story of the week. Elon's plans for Twitter.
Are we on a first-name basis with him? Is he like Madonna or Prince?
For me, yes. For you guys, Mr. Musk is fine.
Okay.
Elon Musk, who just bought Twitter for $44 billion, recently presented a pitch deck to investors outlining his future plans for the social media platform. They include the following. A couple of things. Let's talk about the dollars. He talked about, number one, growing revenue by 5-fold from $5 billion today to $26 billion by 2028, growing revenue by 5-fold. Number two, cutting Twitter's reliance on advertising. 90% of their revenue is advertising today. They want to get down to 50% by 2028. Producing $15 million in revenue from a payments business by next year and growing that business exponentially by 2028. And then lifting Twitter's average revenue per user. So the dollars, growing revenue 5-fold, cutting Twitter's reliance on advertising, producing a $15 million business from payments, and then lifting Twitter's average revenue per user. On the users front, he wants to grow users from the 229 million today to 600 million in 3 years to 900 million 3 years after that. And then also wants to develop a Mysterious X product and have over 100 million subscribers to that mysterious product by 2028. So for users, he wants to grow the current users. He wants to pretty much treble them in 3 years and then add another 300 million on top of that in 3 years, and then working on a Mysterious X product. And then finally, he talked about growing headcount and also raising free cash flow. So folks, we'll start with Paul. What jumped out to you the most with regards to Mr. Musk's future plans for Twitter?
Well, that there's no actual plan. It's just a bunch of aspirations. It's just complete vapor. And when you talk about the Mysterious X, the whole thing is mysterious because he's not talking about how he's going to do any of this. He's talking about quintupling revenue. Great. Everybody wants to quintuple revenue. He's talking about growing the headcount. He's talking about pivoting it from a 90% advertising business to a 50-50 ad and subscriptions. And frankly, I have no idea how he's going to pull any of that off, even if he is Elon or Mr. Musk.
Mr. Musk, please. Yeah, the ad revenue thing. So that is one thing that jumped out to me the most, because there's been a lot of talk about, are they going to get rid of ads completely? Should advertisers move away from Twitter? What are they going to do with regards to content moderation? And will that force advertisers to leave, even if there are less advertising opportunities on Twitter? But I thought it was interesting to note the number here because he says in 2028, advertising revenue they want it to generate $12 billion in revenue. Subscriptions, they want to make $10 billion from. That $12 billion would be 2.5 times what Twitter made in 2021. So the ad dollars are still growing. It's just that the company's reliance on ad dollars would lessen. So I thought that was interesting. I mean, yes, they are goals that he's probably plucked out of nowhere. But the idea that they still want to grow that revenue and quite aggressively suggests that there will still be dollars to be had. It's just that their reliance on advertising will be lessened to a certain degree.
Yeah, they definitely want to have their cake and eat it too, because they're really talking about growing everything about the business, changing some of the equilibrium between the different monetization. But yeah, it's all, I mean, again, great plans. And if he pulls them off, then that would be amazing. But I just don't see anything. I mean, they're calling this a pitch deck. I'd love to see the actual pitch deck because it seems to me more like a set of what a politician would, it would be a campaign promise if it were a politician. So yeah. We shall see.
Evelyn, what jumped out to you?
Yeah, most of what my thoughts kind of center around the lack of an actionable plan as well. And the kind of figure that stood out to me was the 900 million users by 2028 figure, because like Paul mentioned, that's a goal and a pretty lofty goal at that. It's not a plan. And so Musk does say where he anticipates most of that growth coming from, but there isn't any detail about what's going to change about the platform as it exists today to entice people to join and stay active on the platform. And at this point, I have a hard time believing that any of this will actually happen because there's not enough information. And I have seen here and there opinions about, Elon Musk has revolutionized industries before and he can do it again. But I don't think he can manifest these changes just by sheer willpower or solely on the back of his name and influence, except maybe the free cash flow one. That one, he's the richest man on earth, so he could probably figure that one out on his own. Mm-hmm. But everything else, I don't know. I'm skeptical.
Yeah, it took him 3 years to add 100 million users. So the start of 2019, they had 134. Today, they have closer to 230. So it's not like they're on that upward trajectory already and he's going to get some of that previous tailwind that they had. Pretty much all of this growth is going to have to come out of from somewhere else. Blake, what jumps out to you?
It's really unclear how subscriptions is going to amount to 50%. And I think a little bit of a tell was, I thought it was interesting that Elon Musk, he tweeted at the beginning of May, he said Twitter will always be free for casual users, but maybe a slight cost for commercial/government users. So not only is that still incredibly vague, I mean, what's a casual user versus an active user? And then what is a commercial account? Like, is a commercial account an influencer or anybody that's trying to make money, or is it going to have to, is it, just charging like a corporation to have a corporate account? Either way, I don't really see, like, Twitter is not really a need to be on platform for a corporation, nor is it really, an influencer platform. I mean, some journalists and other writers have pretty big followings on Twitter, but it is still pretty niche. And that obviously leads into this whole 900 million figure. You're going to have to make the platform way more palatable to a really, really general population in the way that, Facebook was really the only social network that has been successful in doing so. Mm-hmm. And I think just the way that Twitter operates, I don't think it's going to be a platform that in its current existence has that sort of mass appeal that Facebook does, which, gives the access for people to do a number of things, mainly connect with friends and family. At least that was, sort of the intended purpose. Twitter is taken on, never really was that. It didn't really have that type of value that would get, say, older people onto the platform. So I just don't know where this growth would be coming from. I mean, what part of the population may be going internationally? It's, an English language platform for the most part. So I think there are just a lot of questions when you come to international expansion and demographic expansion that, leaves a lot of questions that need to be answered.
I like this quote from a New York Times article by Tiffany Sue and Kate Conger, where they quote David Jones, who's a longtime ad exec and the chief executive of MarTech company Brand Tech Group. He said, "There's a fork in the road. where path A leads to an unfiltered place with the worst of human behavior, and no brands want to go anywhere near it. And path B has one of the world's genius entrepreneurs who knows a lot about running companies, unleashing a wave of innovation that has people looking back in a few years saying, remember when everyone was worried about Musk coming in? We shall see which path the company goes down. That's all we've got time for the story of the week. It's time now for the game of the week. But first, a quick word from our sponsor, Emparticle. At the end of the day, your customer has to be at the center of everything you do. This starts with the correct customer data strategy, as well as the right foundation to solve the challenges that typically inhibit success, such as data quality, data governance, and connectivity. Emparticle is your real-time customer data infrastructure that helps you accelerate your data strategy by cleansing, visualizing, and integrating your customer data from anywhere to anywhere. Ultimately, better data leads to better decisions, better customer experiences, and better outcomes. See why the best brands choose Emparticle. Go to www.emparticle.com. Right, folks, we are back. It's time now for the game of the week. Today's game, What's the Point? Where I read out 4 stories and have contestants Evelyn, Blake, and Paul tell us what they think is the main takeaway of the story. Okay answers get 1 point, good answers get 2, and answers that give you the same feeling as maple syrup does, answers that leave you with that feeling, they get you 3 points. Who doesn't love maple syrup? Who are those people? Ugh. Each person gets 20 seconds to answer before they hear this. If there's anyone on this panel, I wouldn't say anything, okay? I want to start with negative points. I'll do it. If you run long, you get a technical foul. Blake knows about that. Minus 2 points. 2 technicals gets you ejected from the game. Whoever has the most points wins, gets the last word. We start with Paul. The future of connected fitness. Lululemon has bet on the future of connected fitness, writes Insider Intelligence senior retail analyst Zach Stambor, with plans to debut a $39 a month membership program. The program offers digital fitness classes from its at-home fitness platform Mirror, online classes from boutique studios such as Pure Barre, and discounts to in-person classes at those studios, notes the Wall Street Journal. Zach also mentions that Australian connected fitness startup Vitruvian raised $15 million in a new funding round, and rowing machine maker Hydro recently raised $55 million. But the future of connected fitness, Paul, what's the point?
Well, I think there's a lot to be said for a company that's blending basically an in-home device or in-home fitness with real-world activities. I think if they further expand this to digital health, it could be a really compelling offering. So even though I think, we've seen companies like Peloton struggle, and that's kind of given a whole cast of it was all about the pandemic to this whole connected fitness thing, I really do think that there's a future in it.
Evelyn?
Yeah, I draw parallels with connected fitness to what's happening in retail and entertainment, where consumers are expecting a variety of options so they can choose what works best with their unique personal lifestyle. And I think interest in connected fitness will probably dwindle to a certain extent as we return to normalcy, because people that want to go to an in-person fitness class, group fitness class, can do so, but others will opt for connected fitness. That said, $39 is a pretty hefty price tag as far as subscriptions go, but depending on how much you use it, it's probably still going to be cheaper than attending a comparable number of in-person group fitness classes. So I don't know. I think this is a good idea.
Blake?
Yeah, it seems like every brand and retailer is rolling out some sort of paid subscription. And I think what Lululemon is doing here is smart, because the way to get people to shell over X amount of dollars each month is giving them more bang for their buck. And if you're bundling, digital fitness with apparel, you have a lot better of a chance of getting someone to fork over the $39.99 a month than you would if you're just giving, something like, free and fast shipping on clothing products.
Yeah, according to Think Now research, ownership of smart fitness and exercise equipment in the US is quite varied. So with all the Peloton commercials, you'd think that they were far and away the main brands people had at home. But according to an October 2021 report, 32% of folks had a Peloton, 31% had Mirror, 29% had a Nordic Track, 25% Tempo, 22% Fight Camp, etc. So a lot more ownership, a wide variety of brands than I would have expected at least. We move to our second round. We start with Evelyn, augmenting our reality. What will it take for augmented reality to become our reality, asks Joanna Stern of the Wall Street Journal, a future where we put on lighter, more high-powered AR glasses and view digital information projected within our real world. Think of factory workers with AR headsets who could see the diagnostics of a machine and when it's time for a service. A company called Brain Lab scans an image of your brain, and the glasses pop a 3D image of your brain in front of a surgeon's eyes as a pre-surgical planning tool. But augmenting our reality, Evelyn, what's the point?
So I'm on board. I didn't really need much convincing of AR's promise to begin with, but it's heartening to read how it's being used in healthcare today. I do wonder, in terms of widespread adoption later, about whether there will be any negative effects on our eyes. Blue light glasses have grown in popularity over the last, like 5-ish years because staring at screens all day is not good for you, and that's proven. I assume AR and VR interfaces don't strain your eyes the same way because it's supposedly kind of just like interacting with the real world, the real reality. What do we call real reality these days? But I don't know for sure. So if AR glasses are going to be as widespread as Magic Leap envisions, I'd like some reassurances on that front.
Blake?
Yeah, I think that when you look at emerging technology, the best use cases for them are not just consumer entertainment. It's going to be things like these, and whether it is 3D printing or AR and VR for things like engineering, healthcare, I think that's where the real use case is. And I think it's going to be a lot easier for these technologies to emerge in industries like that than they are for general entertainment purposes.
Paul?
Yeah, I agree. I don't think this is really a consumer play, at least at the beginning. There are definitely great use cases, as the article notes and as Blake just, reviewed. But I do think, though, in general, that AR is probably going to come before VR when it comes to, people actually putting on glasses or a headset, because the technology is just more streamlined and you don't have to wear this giant thing that's completely all immersive. I mean, if it's just about putting on a pair of glasses that look like regular glasses and it allows you to maybe see the map that you're trying to find and not have to look at another screen, then, I could see that being a consumer application, but that's going to come later.
We move to our third round. The speed of online checkout. Just how fast do online shoppers expect to get through checkout now? Asks Tiffany App. Of course, 2/3 of folks, 2 out of 3 folks, expect to check out within 4 minutes. Nearly 1/3, 1 in 3 people, expect it to be just 2 minutes, according to software comparison platform Capterra. Otherwise, they'll abandon their cart. 8 out of 10 said they ditched a purchase because the account registration process was too complicated. But Blake, the speed of online checkout, what's the point?
Yeah, I completely agree. If you don't have a checkout that's set up for Apple Pay or Google Pay, and if it's not, working with the autofill Chrome fill-in or whatever browser, then you're definitely at risk of losing those customers. The days when you have to enter your address for your shipping address and then your billing address and all of that stuff, these are things that create a lot of friction now because there are a lot of top brands and retailers that have created such a fluid checkout process with all of these different payment integrations, and that's the competition. That's kind of table stakes right now.
Paul?
Yeah, when I hear 4 minutes and 2 minutes, to me, maybe I'm just spoiled, but I think like 30 seconds is a lot when it comes to like placing an order. And yeah, to Blake's point, all of that autofill information, I'm getting to the point where I get annoyed at having to punch in the 3-digit code on my credit card.
It's the worst.
Or put in my zip code when I go get gas. So like the less friction, the better. Obviously, we all want to safeguard our data and our privacy. But if the browser is already capturing your credit card number and so much more of your information, then, you're already pretty much bought into that.
Paul's like, 3 digits?
Yeah.
What the hell is this? I'm out.
That's asking a lot.
Evelyn, what you got?
So I found the data that indicates shoppers are giving retailers false information the most interesting here, like false information being fake email addresses and demographic information. I found it both hilarious and interesting because it speaks to a shift in consumer sentiment away from just being, wary of sharing information to just straight up being outright dismissive of it. And I've seen other research that suggests some consumers willingly provide personal data because if they're going to receive product recommendations and marketing communications and ads, they'd rather them be personalized and not completely irrelevant to them. But this makes it sound like people are just over it. It sounds like Paul's also over it. But especially younger consumers are sending a message to retailers like, you don't need my information, leave me alone.
Yeah. And on the point of giving false information, Evelyn, I routinely, if I'm asked for a birth date, I'll put in February 29th of a year that's not a leap year, just to mess with their heads.
The worst. Move to our final round. I was calling it points and a half. I can't be bothered to do decimals. Okay, it's double points.
Wow.
Round 4 is double points. Oh, very generous. Okay, Paul. We start with you, the power of video podcasts. Spotify opens up video podcasting to everyone in the US, the UK, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand, notes John Porter of The Verge. Videos are uploaded through Anchor, the podcast creation tool Spotify bought in 2019. Spotify is also offering video-specific analytics for creators. Interesting. But Paul, the power of video podcasts, what's the point?
Well, I mean, I think, Marcus, a lot of people have told you have a great face for radio or podcasting.
Okay.
I would like to prove that you also have a great face for video. So I think Behind the Numbers should be on video. But seriously, I mean,
extra points for you.
I think video podcasts are great. And once you start kind of like tuning into a video podcast, it's hard to go back to just audio. But I think there will always be a niche. And I think a lot of the power of podcasting comes from the fact that you can listen to it while exercising or pretty much doing anything that doesn't require your undivided attention on a screen. So, I mean, I think having video podcasts is great and having additional metrics is certainly great, but it's always going to be a subset of podcasting overall.
Evelyn.
So I'm an avid podcast listener. You could probably classify me as a mega heavy listener. It's like at least 7 hours a week, probably more than that. But I listen to them so frequently, like Paul mentioned, because they're easy to multitask with, right? I'm walking my dog or washing dishes. So personally, I'm not all that interested in watching a video with my podcasts, but I do think with the rise of short form video on social media and particularly TikTok, having video available to push key sound bites to those platforms is a really, really good idea. And I have on occasion seen a clip from a video podcast and gone on to listen to the full episode. So while I'm not convinced that video really provides a deeper connection to hosts or to the content, I do think video is a really great marketing tool for podcasts.
Blake.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. I think the success of video podcasts gets conflated severely with the fact that the clips of podcasts are often promoted through video. You don't really see a lot of audio clips being shared on social media, but video clips 100%. And that makes sense. I mean, short video clips, video in general is very successful on social. So I think that the appeal of having a video option for any podcast is promotion. And I know people do listen to or watch complete podcasts on video, but I think the real impetus of it is because clips of podcast videos started being shared primarily on YouTube, made its way to other platforms, and they've been established as really great promotional tools for, like what Evelyn said, the full-length audio podcast.
So yeah, speaking of YouTube, Mr. Porter of The Verge notes the functionality is a direct shot across the bow at YouTube, which has quietly become the major platform for video podcasts over the years. Some excellent points, folks. So we've got time for the game of the week. This week's winner, a drum roly-poly, is Evelyn. Congratulations to Evelyn. She's this week's winner. She ran away with it early. Paul, I really wanted to give it to you because of your kind comments about my face. But
it wasn't enough.
15. No, it wasn't enough. No, nearly 15 points for Evelyn, 13 for Paul. Blake with 10. Congratulations to Evelyn. Winner of the game.
Not my best performance.
It's not your best. Yeah.
My first win.
It's close to it. Congratulations, your first win.
Woo!
First win for Evelyn. Congratulations. She gets the championship belt and also the final word.
Oh, no.
Yep.
I guess I will take a moment to talk about a show I saw this weekend. I had the great fortune of seeing Into the Woods, the production of Into the Woods that's currently at City Center in New York. It has a couple of really high-profile names in it. Widely recognized ones would be Neil Patrick Harris and Sarah Bareilles, who play the baker and the baker's wife. There is no sound coming from the other folks on this podcast. I'm assuming that not a lot of them are into the Woods.
No idea what you're talking about.
It's a musical. But it was phenomenal. And I'm personally not a huge Sondheim fan. That might anger some people. I mean, I think he's a genius. It's just not my bag. But this show was truly phenomenal. Well worth. It's a very hot ticket right now, and it's well worth it. So if you can snag a ticket, I highly recommend.
I've heard really good things about it.
That comment won't anger anyone on this panel because we have no idea what you're talking about. It's such an uncultured group. We're all sat there like, theater? What does that mean?
Well, when I heard, I think a couple weeks ago, one of the unpopular opinions was that musicals are like too hyped up, and I was very offended by.
She wrote into the show. She had some very strong language.
I was very offended. I'm a musical person. Next time that opinion comes around on this podcast, just call me up. I will be the other side of the argument, man.
Very good indeed. That's what we've got time for the game of the week. Congratulations to Evelyn. She wins this week's championship belt. It's time now for Uncommon Knowledge. Welcome to Uncommon Knowledge, the segment where we offer up some unpopular or atypical opinions about things. We start with an unpopular opinion from the BBC Radio 1 feature that inspired this segment, and then an unpopular opinion from the internet. Finally, we get an unpopular opinion from one of our analysts related to the media world or retail. So we've got three for you. We start with an unpopular opinion from BBC Radio 1. Wireless headphones should not exist. Some of the reasons why. Number one, it's hard to tell if someone's talking to you or not. Okay. Number two, we haven't exactly nailed Bluetooth, you know? And that's what I've only got the two there. There's just the two. How do you feel?
I disagree adamantly.
It's the theater thing all over again. Go on.
I know, right? No, it's. I think I used to be in that camp, especially when AirPods got really big, and I was like, if I ever get AirPods, I will lose one of them. It's going to happen. But after moving to New York and having hands-free and no wire connected to my phone while riding the subway, revolutionary. It was well worth the investment for wireless headphones, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I gotta say, I was a late adopter to wireless headphones too, but now that I have them, I don't think I can ever go back.
Yeah.
I'm not there yet, so I'm the outlier.
Oh.
I'm old school.
Paul. You would get rid of them?
No, I'm a wired guy.
Yeah, right? You would get rid of wireless headphones?
Yeah, well, part of it is that because I come from an audio background, I can tell the difference in sound quality between Bluetooth and wired. And to me, that's kind of a deal breaker right there. So,
if you ask anyone in audio, I know Victoria's listening to this thinking, bloody Bluetooth. Because, in audio, it's a nightmare. It's the least helpful, and we use wired everything. But
I'm still getting over the fact that we listen to MP3s and not full resolution audio, but that's a whole other subject.
It's all compressed anyways. I mean, you're already listening to an MP3.
It is. So it's even more compressed if it's on Bluetooth, and compressed and glitchy.
All right. I've got another one for you. This is from the internet. Blake's going to love this. Football is more of America's sport than baseball is. Savage.
Where'd you find this? Where do they live?
Okay. Oh my God. He wants an address. Okay. So here's some of the rationale. One was, according to Gallup, football has been mentioned as America's favorite sport since the mid-60s. In 2017, 37% of people said football was their favorite. 11% said basketball. 9% said baseball dipping below basketball for, I think, the first time. If you ask just the 18 to 54-year-olds, then soccer becomes the third favorite sport, and baseball falls to fourth place. And the second thing here was national pastime, which national way to pass the time. But in 2017, 16 million folks over the age of 6 played baseball. Basketball, there were 24 million, so 16 to 24. National Sporting Goods Association had some of those numbers. Football, it was about 5 million. So that was way, way down. Statista had some of these numbers too. But yeah, the term national pastime, I was doing a bit of homework on it. It was first given to baseball in the 1850s, according to John Thorne, author of Total Baseball, to connect baseball to the public's health and well-being. So that's why. Blake, what do you think?
It has more to do with tradition than what is most popular of the moment, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this is, baseball it has endured for so much longer. I mean, the mid-'60s, that's nothing. That's like yesterday. Yeah, baseball's been around since the 1850s. Like it's, we'll see, which one's around, 3 generations from now when nobody lets their kids play football anymore because they're all getting CTE. Baseball will be around.
Okay. Folks, anything else? Any other feelings?
Not really.
No. Oh, nothing from Evelyn.
I think baseball would have done better if nobody had called it the national pastime and they called it the national sport. Then it wouldn't even be an argument.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm going to be fully transparent here. Until 30 seconds ago, I thought pastime meant like past, like in the past, not like to pass the time. I'll readily reveal my own ignorance on that. I'm going to be very straightforward.
Well, on the point of time, perhaps baseball is America's national pastime because it takes so much time.
Exactly.
It does.
Oh, in a bad way. Oh,
no, I like baseball.
A good way.
I like baseball, but
okay.
it is, games are really, really long. Get. So.
Not in a pitch clock kind of way. All right, fair enough.
Also, one more thing on that. Baseball and football are sports that, for whatever reason, are played only by men professionally in this country, which is not true of basketball. It's not true of hockey or soccer. So I think there's something to be said for that. And, maybe part of the reason for the emerging popularity of basketball, or not emerging, but, basketball basically overtaking baseball.
Yeah. But demographics plays a part with soccer, but definitely the women's team carrying the torch in terms of soccer's popularity in this country. So, yeah, good points. All right. We've got one more for you. It's an unpopular opinion from Blake about 15-minute grocery delivery. Blake, what's wrong?
So, this is 15-minute grocery delivery is a topic that I cover closely in my work. And there's been a lot of press lately around sort of the trials and tribulations of companies like GoPuff and other competitors, which got a lot of hype during the pandemic, a huge influx in venture capital money. And now they're struggling, right? I mean, these businesses they're facing layoffs. There's a lot of regulation. Many of them have gone bankrupt soon after really just kind of getting their feet on the ground. But I don't think that it's right to lump in the use of 15-minute delivery with the challenges that these companies are facing. I think it's very rare that once you introduce the consumer to a convenience of this level, that there's not going to be a demand for it. And of course, the pandemic created a lot of situations where services were higher in demand. And yes, there's going to be some tapering as we come out of the pandemic. But when you look at survey after survey across e-commerce, fast shipping, fast delivery has and probably always will be the top feature. And to have a level of convenience that comes along with really fast delivery for convenience items in urban areas, I'm not saying that, the criticism or sort of the skepticism around these companies and, the tough road ahead for them isn't valid. It's completely valid, but I think that somebody is going to be able to make this space profitable, whether it's a delivery company like DoorDash that is introducing a concept like DashMart, which is essentially having their own micro-fulfillment center and delivering owned products quickly, or if it's GoPuff that's operating solely on that model. I think that consumer demand is going to stick around. So when you read about the falterings of these companies and, the bankruptcies and the layoffs and all of the logistical complications with this really fast delivery, I would also remember that this is a type of learned consumer behavior that I think will stick around, maybe outlasting some of the big companies right now. But I think that it is a space that we should continue watching, even if there are a lot of troubles for the big players right now.
I agree with Blake.
I think really quickly for me, I think wasn't part of the problem, Blake, that local governments don't like the idea of delivery people racing around their city because of the 15-minute delivery expectation. There are people who are running red lights and acting dangerously, and that's what part of their concern is. And that's why I think some governments have either banned the marketing term or are trying to basically stop companies from offering or giving out this 15-minute delivery.
Yeah, that's one thing. And the other thing is that, these cities, like particularly in New York, it was in the news this week that, they don't want micro-fulfillment centers in retail spaces. They want to push them outside of the commercial areas to places on the outskirts of the city, which is why all the GoPuffs in New York now are also operating as walk-in stores so they can sort of get around that. But those things are probably really pale in comparison to the fact that these companies are just not profitable, and they're getting huge influx of cash and they're burning it like crazy. And I think that the business model is just not there yet. So I think those are things those criticisms, that skepticism, like I said, is valid. But I think that, 5-10 years from now, that speed of delivery, whether it's coming from driverless cars or drones or just some other thing that we haven't heard of yet, I think that we're going to keep inching closer and closer to that being the norm.
Mm-hmm. For the record, I want my checkout in less than 30 seconds and my deliveries in about 3 minutes. So even if you have to teleport it or use a super high-speed drone, whatever it takes, man.
Your butler can help out with that.
Yeah, just have your butler run out to the store.
So unreasonable, Paul. Anyway, that's what we've got time for Uncommon Knowledge. It's time now for dinner party data. This is part of the show where we tell you about the most interesting thing that we've learned this week. We start with Evelyn because she won the game of the week. Evelyn, what have you learned?
All right, so May is Mental Health Awareness Month. So I looked at Mental Health America has a ranking for states where states at the top of the list have lower prevalence of mental illness and higher rates of access to care. And then states at the bottom of the list have higher prevalence of mental illness and lower rates of access to care. So I'm going to give you the top 3 and the bottom 3 states for 2022 for adults, and then I'll run through for youth as well. So for adults, top 3 states: New Jersey, Wisconsin, and Massachusetts. And fun fact, I remember a couple weeks ago, Yuri's dinner party data was that New Jersey is also the most densely populated state. So interesting parallel there. Bottom 3 are Oregon, Wyoming, and Colorado.
Okay.
So those are for adults. And then for the youths, top 3, Pennsylvania, Maine, and District of Columbia. So Washington, D.C. And then bottom 3 are Arizona, Idaho, and Nevada.
Huh.
There you go.
All very different. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, I know.
Very
it was
good.
interesting to me that adults and youth had wholly different top and bottom 3s.
Yeah.
Interesting.
All right.
What does it say about me that I was born in New Jersey and my kids grew up in Maine?
You probably have really stellar mental health then, huh?
Yeah. They're in great shape, Paul. They're in great shape. All right, Paul, you're next.
Here's an interesting piece of data, speaking of May being Mental Health Month, is of the top 10 advertisers ranked by ad spending in 2021, by far the number 1, and it beat the number 2 by more than threefold, is BetterHelp, which is an organization that offers mental health services. It beat out NBC Universal and Amazon, ZipRecruiter, Geico, Capital One. Wow. So BetterHelp spent $75 million plus in advertising in 2021. And I don't have this data point right in front of me, but I'm pretty sure I've seen them in this ranking in the past as well, very high up. So I don't think this is a one-time fluky thing.
No, it's not surprising to me either, because again, I'm a mega heavy podcast user, and they are all over the place all the time. BetterHelp.
There you go.
Interesting. Okay. Very good. Very good, Paul. Blake, you're up.
So this ties back to something that we were talking about earlier in the episode with AR. YouGov had a poll recently asking which technologies do Americans think will eventually catch on. So I think I'd like to ask everyone to guess what the most likely technology Americans think will eventually catch on and the least likely technology. So does anybody have a guess for the most likely?
Technology that eventually catch on.
It's a pretty long list.
Just kidding. It's apparently already here. Bluetooth.
I'm wondering, like, what what it classifies as technology, though.
Yeah.
Because it could be like, I don't know, a wheel. Who knows?
No, these are things that are like
wheel?
emerging technologies.
Emerging tech. Okay.
Yeah.
That narrows it down.
and that haven't caught on. The wheel has presumably caught on.
The wheel is
That
way
was
in the
going to be your
pastime.
guess, Evelyn?
No,
One
I'm
day,
just
one day.
illustrating
Fire.
how broad the
They'll
word
realize
tech
the
is.
potential. Mm-hmm. All right. That's fair. That's a fair point. Drones will eventually catch on.
Drones are not on the list. 3D printing is the technology that most Americans believe will eventually catch on. So becoming like widespread. And then the least likely technology that Americans think will eventually become widespread. Any guesses?
Flying cars?
Flying cars are not on here. Self-driving cars are on here, and it's pretty high up on the list, right after artificial organs and virtual reality.
Oh.
Artificial organs.
But I don't know. I was kind of pickled that the last, at the very, very, very bottom of this list, the least three. There's personal space travel, 44%. Think it's gonna catch on. The metaverse, 43%.
Ooh.
And then the bottom of the list, non-fungible tokens.
There you go.
Of course.
So all of these things, people think that blockchain,
Right.
cryptocurrency, lab-grown meat, augmented reality, quantum computing, gene editing technology, self-driving cars, artificial organs, artificial intelligence, virtual reality, 3D
chance.
printing, all have a better chance of becoming widespread than the NFT.
It says a lot about our foresight that two of those bottom three items were already featured in Uncommon Knowledge.
Two of them?
Yeah. NFTs
Oh, yeah,
and the
that's right.
metaverse.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah.
I think they were the first two, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which turned out to probably be some pretty popular opinions in that they probably won't take off anytime soon. If at all. Very good. I got one for you real quick. Who was the first American to win a Nobel Peace Prize? It was Theodore Roosevelt. 26th US president, received the Peace Prize for having negotiated peace in the Russo-Japanese War in 1904-1905. And History.com talks a bit about where the Nobel Peace Prize came from. They write that the first Nobel Prizes were awarded in Stockholm, Sweden, in the fields of physics, chemistry, medicine, literature, and peace on December 10th, 1901. The ceremony came on the 5th anniversary of the death of Alfred Nobel, the Swedish inventor of dynamite and other high explosives. In his will, Nobel directed that the bulk of his vast fortune be placed in a fund in which the interest would be annually distributed in the forms of prizes to those who shall have conferred the greatest benefit of mankind. Although Nobel offered no public reason for his creation of the prizes, it is widely believed that he did so out of moral regret over the increasingly lethal uses of his inventions in war. Between 1901 and 2021, the Nobel Prizes and the Sveriges Riksbank Prize in Economic Sciences in memory of Alfred Nobel were awarded 609 times to 975 people and organizations.
I guess it was a Nobel gesture on his part.
Well played. Very good. That's all we've got time for today's episode. Thank you so much to my guests. Thank you to Evelyn,
Thanks, Marcus.
this week's champion of the game of the week. Thank you to Paul.
Always a pleasure.
Thank you to Blake.
Thanks, everyone.
And thank you to Victoria. She edits the show. Thanks to everyone listening. We'll see you guys on Monday, hopefully, for the Behind the Numbers Daily and eMarketer podcast made possible by M Particle. Happy weekends. How do you guys say ceremony? Ceremony?
No, you got it.
Which way?
I say ceremony.
Okay, so it's ceremony.
You can say it any way you want, man. You own the language. We're just
You're right,
following your
Paul.
lead.
You're just borrowing it.
Yeah.
Best believe.